Welcome to the Zveda podcast. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Lorena.
We're a community for women by women. We're here to help each other rise to impact generations. Welcome to the Zveda She Rises podcast. We
hey,
are
ladies.
So excited to be here. Woo-hoo. We got a lot of good things to cover today.
Yeah, we do.
And we could talk forever, but we promise we won't. We'll try to be as brief as possible and save some of the goodness for future podcasts. Mm-hmm. But so glad you're with us. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in. Thank you for sending in your questions. Please keep those coming.
Yes, we love reading them. We love just chiming in. So it's great just to foster the connection here.
Yes. So we want to kick off today with a trending topic. And for me personally, in this week, in 2 days, 5 different people and things came my direction about the power of worship. And I know a lot of us right now are asking, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? How do I help people? How do I encourage people? Should I be gathering? Should I not be gathering? What do I do? And one of the strongest pieces of advice that I loved was when we don't know what to do, we worship and we pray. And that there's such power in worship. It lifts us into a new attitude. It lifts us into a more positive atmosphere.
That's right.
Even when we don't feel like it. And I think that's, one of the things that Lorena and I were talking about even before we started recording today is, man, we just let our feelings reign too much. And before long, we are in the pit. We can start telling ourselves something. We can get down. We just get lower and lower and lower. And I'm really finding for myself personally, that's been the case a few times. Being a single mom, my son's not always here. I'm at home by myself a lot during the workday. And even though I'm talking to people online, it's completely different.
Right.
And, I'll often feel at the end of the day just drained and blah, and I don't even want to go outside. And then I'll realize, in the last couple of days, I haven't even been outside. My mood is down. I don't want to do anything. I just want to veg. I want to eat queso, veg.
Queso.
And in those moments, feelings, I'm letting feelings reign. And what I'm trying to demonstrate myself and also bring forward and teach you is that press through it. Just take an action.
It's good.
When we can take an action, throw on some worship music, crank it up, start singing. I don't care what you sound like. Let that fill your space and your home. Yeah. Maybe do something that's energizing you. Walk the dog, go on a walk, get outside, get some sunshine on your face, clean the house, vacuum while that worship music is booming. And I guarantee you will feel quite different. Yeah. So I know that's a lot, but I just hearing the words from pastors and friends and going to the word has been a real inspiration in the power that our worship brings to our atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like we're seeing in our day and our culture how it is so powerful to shift feelings and even to push back different parts of darkness, like we're seeing, like I know just one person I can think of off the top of my head, just even recently, Sean Foyt, he's going out and leading outdoor worship gatherings. And people may agree or disagree with that. So we're not, going there, I guess, with conversation. But I think what the principle is that really stands out to me is that he sees the power that worshiping our King can actually shift atmospheres and can shift, like Jamie was saying, our feelings. And so just that choice to even like part of, I guess, like the campaign that he's pulled around this movement is let us worship. It's that choice to act, even when you're not feeling like it. Let us worship. I think like David in the Psalms would often write like I'm going to stir up my heart to worship the Lord. There were times where I'm sure he wasn't feeling it. In fact, probably feeling a lot of the opposite, a lot of negative emotions, but he chose to engage, and then his feelings followed suit. So I think that's powerful as far as a trending topic. Jamie, was there anything else you wanted to say on that?
I just wanted to, as we're talking, just taking us to the word.
Yeah, it's good. What you got for us?
So 2 Corinthians 10, 3-6. This is a reminder of why we worship, especially in a time period where the enemy wants nothing more than to make us feel like we are disconnected and we are alone. For although we live in the natural realm, we don't wage a military campaign employing human weapons, using manipulation to achieve our aims. Instead, our spiritual weapons are energized with divine power to effectively dismantle the defenses behind which people hide. We can demolish every deceptive fantasy that opposes God and break through every arrogant attitude that is raised up in defiance of the true knowledge of God. We capture, like prisoners of war, every thought and insist that it bow in obedience to the Anointed One, Jesus Christ, I'll add. Since we are armed with such dynamic weaponry, we stand ready to punish any trace of rebellion as soon as you choose complete obedience. The way we battle is worship.
That's good. That's good. Just leave that right there.
Yep.
That's powerful. Wow. So as we now move into the main section of this episode, we're digging into like an overview of our second core value, which is we believe in the confidence of being. And this value is really just encompassed in just really a life lived from wholeness. We know, I think we've talked about before on previous episodes that we're 3-part beings. We're spirit, soul, body. I'm sure many of you have kind of heard that language before. Our spirit man being awakened through salvation, and then our soul being our mind, will, and emotions at play. And then our physical body, what, we can see and touch. And so we just want to dive into kind of an overview of those 3 different parts of our being, because we really believe in living from a place of wholeness, that confidence in our being. And so we'll talk through, again, we'll dig a lot deeper into all these 3 different pieces of this core value, probably in some future episodes, because there's a lot of content here. So we'll talk through kind of high level, broad strokes, spiritual well-being and maturity. We'll talk through emotional and mental well-being, and then also physical health. Those are kind of the 3 different areas because they align with our spirit, soul, and body.
Yeah, and they're all needed.
They're so needed.
Be whole. If one of those is out of line, then we're out of line. We're going to feel it.
Yeah. I mean, and things we've also talked about. I know Jamie and I even offline when we aren't recording, we talk through especially how there can be some emphasis in church culture, whatever part of the church, that you're a part of, the Big C church here in America, is that there's a lot of emphasis on spiritual growth and maturity, but if our souls are not tended to and like the garden of our hearts are not kept through like emotional and mental well-being, that will actually affect our spiritual lens.
We won't even want to dig into the spiritual side.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times.
So we're going to dig a lot deeper into that. We've got some great materials and resources that will also weave into this content with future episodes. It's going to get thick. So
here we go.
So digging into spiritual maturity. I think a big component of this to be spiritually mature is to really know who Jesus is. If he is the way, the truth, and the life, he has modeled what it means to live as a son and a daughter here during this life on earth. And the best way to get to know Jesus is through reading the Gospels. Like I've heard people say like, I want to, see angels, and I want to like prophesy, or I want to, pray for healing, and like just see all these miracles and signs and wonders today. And it's like, well, if you don't even know and appreciate the signs and wonders that Jesus did, like, do you think he's going to trust you, with like pouring those things out? I'm not saying that God can't do that, but if we don't even know the life of Jesus, how can we posture our hearts properly to receive those things that God wants to pour out in our lives? So I think that's the baseline there for spiritual maturity, is really knowing the life of Jesus and connecting with him through how he lived during his life and then 3 years of ministry on the earth before his crucifixion and resurrection. Anything on that, Jamie?
Well, just that also helps us to recognize the truth of who he sees us as.
Yeah.
If we can get to know him, then we begin to see ourselves through the lens that Jesus sees us through.
Yeah, that's really good. Yep. And so a part of that vein is what I've been reading recently, Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. Chapter 5 being the Sermon on the Mount message, where this is Jesus's first message during his ministry. He climbs up to the top of a mountain and he teaches a lot of people. And similarly to how like Moses on Mount Sinai received the 10 Commandments, this is Jesus giving really the way of life in this new covenant through having relationship with Jesus. And so he talks through the 8 Beatitudes, which are, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will have eyes to see God. The 7th one is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. They will actually be like God as they make peace. And then lastly, blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I think it's powerful to really get these Beatitudes in our heart, because it really is a contrary way than the American way in some ways of living. Yeah. It really leads us along that narrow path, and that, through that gate that's not very wide, but it leads to life. It's a totally different way of thinking and doing life. But as Jesus says in the word, it leads to life. And so
the world can often tell us that some of those key things would be viewed as weakness. Oh, if you're a peacemaker, well, then you're not strong.
Not fighting back.
Yeah, if you're showing mercy or you're mourning, then you're weak.
But really, that's kind of the upside down nature of the kingdom of God, is that weakness. In our weakness, his strength is revealed. And so we want to dig way deep in that in a future episode, because that really is such a strong muscle when it comes to spiritual maturity. And I think too, and this goes into chapters 6 and 7 in the book of Matthew, but Jesus says that the ways to really live out these Beatitudes and to guard our hearts from some of the toxic things, like when he talks about like the spirit of adultery or the spirit of anger or murder, like these different things, the way to keep our hearts tender and close to the Lord are through 4 different things. It's through prayer, fasting, giving, and serving. He breaks down all 4 of those in the word. And the key is doing those in secret, because if we do it in front of men, we've received our reward. Like that's all we get, right? But doing it really just for the Lord, it breaks us free from the fear of being rejected by others. And it also breaks us free from wanting to receive the praise from other people.
Like performance.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
turns us away from that performance attitude and toward a genuine attitude of care and operating out of a desire to give, whether it's giving to the Lord, or giving to someone that's around us that's really in need.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are kind of the big pieces that we'll dig into more, but really it's just knowing Jesus through the Gospels, living out the Beatitudes, and having our hearts being tender through prayer, fasting, giving, and serving. Yeah. So that's a big component of spiritual maturity. And then looking at emotional maturity and mental well-being, there is a book that we're going to bring into a future episode. It's called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And the whole premise of this book, it's incredible, y'all. Like, it's changing my life as I'm going through it. But the whole premise is that we cannot be spiritually mature while remaining emotionally immature. Yeah, it's deep. I mean, he talks about, going into things of our past and being healed of experiences from our childhood, or even like thought patterns or behaviors that we inherited from our families of origin that need to actually change to what the Lord has written in his word, so that we can become children of God, that we can actually be a part of God's family and break agreement with things that are not healthy. And we all have those like family dynamics. No family is perfect. But it affects our emotional well-being. He also talks a lot about in this book that a part of just life in general is knowing your limits, and loss is going to be a key facet of life, and knowing how to grieve and let things go. So we'll dig more into that, because that really can show you the environment of what's going on in your soul.
Oh yeah. That's so good.
Some of the other things we have written here is just like having self-awareness, being able to diagnose the emotions that you're feeling, articulate them to others, and also be able to ask for what you need. Because a lot of times when we're feeling some kind of emotion, if we don't have the language to articulate that, there's a disconnect immediately with other people. And sometimes like our needs, which are healthy in a lot of ways, can't get met.
Right. And a lot of times us just taking a moment to ask for help, it allows someone to give to us.
Yep. And that connection to be strengthened.
That's great.
Yeah. Another piece is that, I talked about being able to articulate what you need. Another piece is living offended, that spirit of offense, which leads to division, right? Like I've actually been thinking about, and I'll let you talk on this, Jamie, because I know you have a lot to say, but I've been thinking about different words from the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God and indivisible with liberty and justice for all. That word indivisible, I was talking with one of my pastors recently that she was saying that is the spirit of God, and the spirit of this nation even is being indivisible, refusing to be divided from other people, refusing to be offended. And so, Jamie, what would you like to add to just like how sometimes people can live offended and how that affects us emotionally?
Yeah, that's a big topic. And I think we're seeing that so much in our world right now.
Yeah.
Everyone is definitely entitled to our opinions, but I think it's going back to that, assume best intent.
Yeah, it's good.
Everyone comes from a place, their own place. They have a different there's different backgrounds. There's different comfort levels. There's just different views. Everything is different.
And to make room for that.
For and not just lash out into this place of offense. I don't know. I've just seen it be so prevalent. And one of the examples I was sharing is I follow this comedian. She's fantastic. It's Heather Land. And she uses a Snapchat filter a lot, and it's a funny voice. And if you've heard of her, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I've also seen other comedians. Like, guys, this is what we need. We need people in the entertainment industry that can make us laugh right now.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because she was talking the other day about seeing people wearing masks in their car. And I was dying laughing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have been guilty of that. I forget that it's on my face, and I'm driving down the road and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have my mask on. What am I doing? And of course she's, like, where do you think you're going to get sick from? The vents? Making a joke and trying to create connection. And then I started reading the comments and my heart sunk. People were ripping her to shreds because of that joke. And I just sat there a moment and I thought, see, this is part of our problem. We can't even allow someone to operate in their gift to make a joke. We are offended. We're so ready to be offended and to come to battle. And it's like, but why? Why? When she's just trying to bring light to the world. So I just took a moment. I don't know if she read my comment at all, but I just thanked her. I said, you know what? silence the negative comments. Thank you so much for stepping out and just continuing to be who you are and do what you do and bring comedy to our world. Because guys, we're living in a stressful time, but it's funny. Like look around and find the funniness around some of the things that are going on. I guarantee you're going to live a much more joy-filled, happy, relaxed, peaceful life if you can let go of the offense.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've seen is, and we could go on and on about this topic, but people will create a story that's just not even true.
What do you mean by that? Like creating a whole other ulterior world that's not even connected to reality?
I made this statement, and all of a sudden it's like this other person has created this whole storyline and become offended. And I'm like, all I meant was I didn't like blue pens.
And they didn't come and talk to you about it?
Eventually, but it's like, I helping to bring it to their attention. Like,
yeah.
Okay, hold on a minute. Like, do you realize you just created a movie in your head? And I think we can do that to other people. We can also do it on our own.
Yeah.
We just sit and we ruminate and we create, just like the
Stereotype.
comedy example. It's like, well, how dare you, talk about making fun of people wearing masks in their car. Maybe they're a delivery person. Well, maybe they are, but it's still funny. So instead of being so quick to create this thought and this movie of negativity, man, let's just release that spirit of offense and just assume best intent.
Yeah, that's really good, Jamie. And it's so true. That is such a, it really can show where our emotional health is if we're easily offended.
Yeah.
And I think this is a little side note, but I think what really could be rooted in that spirit of offense is actually a desire to fix something that we see as broken.
Yeah.
As opposed to letting people have the space in their journey to become whole. And even deeper than that, not getting too deep in the weeds, but that can also, like that desire to fix something can be even deeply rooted in like a consumerism mindset where we want to have the perfect thing. And if it's not perfect for us to consume based on our standards or our level, our preferences, we reject it immediately instead of giving somebody the space to work out what they're working out. Or like Jamie said, to fully be themselves and just express their gift of comedy and humor for the world. And so I think just even like backing up and saying like, okay, what's the root here? That'll be a lot of what we talk about in this emotional health and well-being section too, because there's a lot of things that we believe that our emotions are kind of like, they're like this surface level language. Hey, there's something deeper here.
Yeah. Yeah. So take a minute, take a step back before reacting to something or commenting on someone's social media post.
Yeah. Take a breath.
And, like to your point, in our previous podcast, we were talking about being able to birth new things. And maybe this is not to say, like, we're not sharing this to say, like, there isn't, like, injustice in our world.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
there
happening.
is. There definitely is. People can go off the rails and say the horrible things, and they definitely need to be corrected on those things. But there is a way to approach that.
Yeah.
And I think if you're really passionate about something, there could be an opportunity for you to go serve in an area to help create change. So instead of ranting, maybe take some action to create some positive change. We all need that, I can tell you.
Yeah, that's great. And the third component is just physical health that we want to dive into with this core value that we believe in the confidence of being, that we grow in confidence when we take care of our bodies, I think a big part of that is when we've talked about this is honoring the Sabbath, right? Like getting that rest or that time for play and creativity that just rejuvenates our beings. We'll also talk more about just taking care of our bodies when it comes to eating the right foods, being hydrated, which we had a little short on that in our last episode. We'll also talk more about just physical exercise as well. Like the movement of our physical body is so good for all of these many systems, our, our nervous system, our endocrine system, all these things that need to move fluids around in our body, we need to exercise to do that. And then I think too, like exposure to sunshine is so important. Like it gives us certain just like rays and vitamins that we need. Oh my gosh.
A mood lift, a definite mood lift.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll talk more about that in some future episodes, but all those three components, the spiritual maturity, the emotional well-being, and then physical health are so critical to this value that we believe in the confidence of being.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So moving forward, so health and hospitality tip. This episode, we wanted to do a hospitality focused tip, and just the idea of having, if you're comfortable, having 2 or 3 people over to your home, just to get together, to connect and to read the word together, because that's encouraging during a time like this, and have a meal, like if you want to plan with, like I said, 2 or 3 of your friends to come over, and maybe like you want to do the main dish, someone can bring a couple sides, another person can bring dessert. Exactly. Yeah. Like just having that time to connect, because we do need that in-person connection, and in the safety of your home, like that can be, a sweet spot. But like we're saying, with grace, approach it with grace. If you're comfortable, do it, because it's a way that you can exercise hospitality in this time. Yeah.
And it's funny because one of the girls that I work with, she used the phrase, our bubble group.
Bubble group.
So the individuals that they've been around consistently throughout. So just if you haven't formed one, form your bubble group. But there's definitely people I've been around more frequently during this time, and I can't tell you what it does to my mood to just have human connection.
Absolutely.
Face to face, in person.
Yeah. Socially
distanced, but in person. And obviously there's people I've been around that I'm hugging, and that's so important. Just the physical touch. We can often take those things for granted. I think we have. And so finding those opportunities, will really, really help your mood and how you're feeling about yourself.
Yeah, that's great, Jamie. So as far as what women want to know, the last part of our episode is just taking a question from the community. So Jamie, what's the question that we have this week?
So the question is, how can I grow in self-awareness? Ooh, that's a tough one.
Any initial thoughts? I have a couple thoughts, but I'd love for you to share.
I was just going to make a joke of that. Oftentimes we can grow in self-awareness because our friends are going to tell us how much of a jerk we're being.
I mean, that's kind of like what I was going to say,
Like, I think you might need to go on a walk, or
I think you might need to just have some dark chocolate or something.
Yes, exactly.
No, that's awesome, Jamie. So to tackle this question, I was on a live Bible study last night where the guy who was teaching it, his name's Corey Russell. He's originally from the International House of Prayer in Kansas City. Now he's with Upper Room in Dallas. Super funny, but man knows the word, man. Like, and he's great. But he was sharing how this value of that we live in a culture where we're just addicted to variety, and we run from things that are difficult. And like I was saying earlier in maybe this episode or previous episodes, that Jesus says that the way to life, that gate's going to be narrow and it's going to be difficult. Like I was reading that scripture in Matthew recently, and I was like, whoa, like it's going to be difficult. So actually, okay, what does that mean? And I think it's an invitation to be in community with other weak people. We're all weak. Okay. Like just gonna blow that one up.
Just be in community with each other.
Yeah. Because no one's perfect. No one has it all together. So we're all weak in one area or another, but to choose to be in community with the people that God has surrounded you with. Because even like he made the point, like the disciples or people from, really before this day and age.
The bubble group.
Yeah. the bubble group. Yeah. Like you couldn't travel. So you were doing life with the people that were in your town.
Yeah.
So the people that are, in your church community or your bubble group, is like, we're going to joke about that now. That's fun. There's going to be a lot of imperfections, but that is the way that we can have greater self-awareness, because there will be things that we may not see in ourselves that someone else will see that blind spot for us and have the courage and the love to just approach us with gentleness and compassion to be like, hey, I see this in you and I care about you. I want you to grow. Here's this thing. Let's talk about it. And I think it really only comes through relationship because, you know, like I'm thinking of, okay, if there's a part of my life that is, you know, a broken part, right? Like in a way, like I can adapt to where I kind of do life with it and I kind of do life okay, you know, but until someone else sees that and points it out, I won't really know that it's an issue. So yeah,
it goes, you know, it goes both ways where it could be a positive. So a compliment that we maybe don't recognize in ourselves as well.
That's right.
And also someone that can challenge you and like, man, hey, I noticed you have the spirit of offense. Like, I noticed you're getting offended a lot. Or maybe you notice a trend of like, oh, you're really talking about that person a lot. Have you actually talked to them? You know, have you actually prayed for them? Some of those challenging things and I use those examples because that's been brought to my attention, you know, in the past.
Yeah.
Both good, like encouraging things and how I can bring light to a room. And then also some of those challenging little like, you might want to look at this area right here.
Here's some sandpaper, but it's going to make you smooth.
Yep. And in that moment, like just receiving it.
Yeah. Yeah. Humbly and wanting to embrace that change. So yeah, just how can you grow in self-awareness, get in community and don't bubble group hop. Like choose your people, choose your tribe and just lean in knowing it's going to be messy, but knowing that that's actually where the beauty is. That's where the transformation happens is when you let people in close to you and you let people speak into your life, both the positive and the challenges of where you can grow.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. Well, that concludes our episode for today. Ladies, thanks so much for joining. Please, again, just reminder, tune in weekly, send us an email, engage. You can even comment on our social media posts and just let us know what's going on in your world. Send us a question and let's encourage each other. Thanks for listening to the Zveda podcast. Keep your questions coming so we can rise together. Visit Zveda.com to talk to us and join our community. That's Zveda.com. We'll see you next week.